Hello and welcome to this week's video, which is Real Drift on PC. It's our first and hopefully only encounter with a Unity asset flip. Now, I'll get into what a Unity asset flip is for those that don't know it later, but the reason why I want to cover this is to not only let people know what an asset flip is, because you'll probably be seeing it on PlayStation Store very soon or a games console store near you, but I also want to explore the whole world of game development. Not myself personally, I have always been curious in making games, but not on a level of making car games, that's for sure. But let's have a little look at Real Drift and we'll see what a Unity asset actually looks, sounds and feels like. Let's have a look at the available vehicles within this asset pack. But first I just want to quickly mention at the top of this, thank you to specifically Skid Row Trash on the Steam review on the store page for this game for pointing out that this is indeed an asset flip and linked to evidence showing so. And here's a little bit so you can have a look at as well. It's just clearly, if I go around over here, does that look a bit familiar? Does that look a bit familiar? It's essentially untouched, and the whole point of an asset pack is to carry on working on it and not just leave it standard. You're supposed to add on the work. It's supposed to be help towards making something, not be the whole thing itself. You can only customise the wheel and the tyre smoke. That's one of the things I did notice on the Unity store that actually intrigued me. If you want a colour that isn't one of these 8 pre-bog or standard colour palettes, you can click on random, which will give you colours that aren't there. But that obviously is not a perfect solution for a finished game. You'd want a solution where you can actually have some sort of control over what colour you're trying to assign to the specific area of a car. But that will do, I suppose, and we'll go back because there is no confirm button from what I can tell. And I've already tried recording this, but because I messed up the recording, you won't believe how I messed it up. You can get ready to mock me. I forgot to plug my earphones in. I had them on my head. I have them over my ears, the whole video that I recorded, and I forgot to plug it in. Yeah. There's still a lot of bumps in this road of recording on PC, and I do apologise if my recording techniques aren't perfect yet, but just like with console, it's an evolutionary process. I will get better as we go along. And when it comes to Nitro in this game, I've pushed all, as you're about to see when I start playing, the controller is literally just a token display of functionality, I think is the word I'm looking for. And the song you hear in the background is just the same song looped over and over again, as I can deduct and seduce definitely isn't around. But from what I can tell from looking around, it is just a free, copyright free song that you can just whack and use it wherever. So I'm guessing Unity just stuck it in there as a placeholder until you add your own music source, but you know. Let's go for the starting vehicle, which is this Corolla. They have many names, but I'll call it a Corolla. Push select, and here we have the tracks. So yeah, we've got 5 levels here. None of them have names. I played up to the 3rd track, the 3rd level, and I'll start again at the beginning, and I'll show you what it looks like. Now we're in nice and quick. Now let's get the joypad. I'll move the pointer of the mouse out the way. You won't believe this. I mean, I don't obviously have an experience of making games, so I don't know just how basic things are when you start out, when you buy asset packs, for example. It's all controlled, and I'm going to say this very slowly and clearly, it's all controlled on joypad using just the left analog stick. You push it forward to accelerate, down to brake, and left and right to do the obvious steering. The handbrake is triangle for some reason. Well, sorry, I say triangle, it's an Xbox controller, so that's the Y button, and I'm all over the place, so I'm looking down at my controller. And I've tried all the buttons that I can think of, and none of them do NOS, and we're off again here. The physics are pretty much non-existent, but that's pretty much to be expected with an asset pack. Now, I'm going to get into the whole why I think asset packs are useful and important. But for obviously people that have watched Jim Sterling's channel, you won't need to know this. I'm just sort of reiterating it, but just translating it to a car game sort of genre. Now, with car games, one of the hardest things about it is the physics engine, because that's what's the most enjoyable for most players who tend to stick with car games. If the physics engine's no good, then the game won't be any good. For example, Drive Club on PlayStation 4. The reason, in my opinion, why that failed, and the reason why it certainly failed to please me as a car fan and as a gamer, was the physics engine was so shallow that even a baby couldn't drown in it. And that's saying something. That babies can apparently drown in like an inch of water. And quite frankly, what also scares me about this is not only Unity assets on PC, on Steam, you're more than likely, if I've not checked this, because I'm quite new to mobile games as well in the recent market, is there's probably been asset flipped on the mobile store as well, and that's what the stars just instantly remind me of, a mobile game. And that's an even worse nightmare. So imagine getting this on the mobile store, admittedly maybe for free, but then having to have so many adverts and then whatever naughty things could be within it. Because, you know, you could sneak other naughty things into the file if you really wanted to. Yes, and this is the best you're going to get as far as a replay. Let's go back to the main menu. Now, the reason why I actually find this interesting, personally, is because I've always wanted to make games. As a gamer, it's one of those things, if you love a certain hobby or a passion, you always tend to want to go deeper and get into the actual nitty-gritty and get your hands dirty and actually do it yourself. And gaming is certainly a thing that I've always been definitely thinking about, actually going into an area and learning how to do, teach myself sort of thing, and maybe take a few courses. But car games have always scared me because the physics of making a car game is so hard. That's why making an arcade game, when it comes to cars, is more traditional and expected, where simulators have a much higher standard to meet. It's just, and that's why I think they tend to fail. That's just my opinion. But as you know, power of consoles and PCs and everything keeps getting more powerful, eventually there'll be so much power there that you can make a stunning physics engine. But then you have to have the game engine itself as the base level to actually be there to support it. And I don't know if we're there yet. I really don't know. But gaming will hopefully get there as long as it doesn't burn itself to the ground in the meantime with microtransactions and litigation for gambling. Do we have enough money for the next car? Apparently we don't. So this time we'll try the Corvette, I suppose. Let's give it some tyre smoke. Let's give it some random one. Oh, it paints. Is that painting the wheels as well? It is. Why is it painting? Oh, it paints the wheels as well then. Okay. I didn't notice that before, or maybe it's just on this. I have no idea. Come on, that'll do, I suppose. Right. Almost a Monster Energy sort of branded colour scheme. Let's go back. And this music will get on your tits after a while. That is a British expression, by the way. I guess that sounds a bit weird too. It just means you're getting annoyed and irritated. The music just loops and loops and loops. But this isn't meant to be a game. It's meant to be something you stick in a whole other thing. It's meant to be a part of a product, as I mentioned before. And this is the part where I kind of want to speak out to the developer. I say so-called developer. It's a bit a stretch of the definition of the word developer. But seriously, as a human being to human being here, I understand how complicated car games are to make, sort of, as I've already pointed out. And I do fear, and I do, give it credit of how hard it is to do. But surely there must have been a moment when you downloaded this asset pack from the Unity store that you must have thought, I could spend a couple of months on this, I could spend a year on it, and just see where I go, try and learn a bit of development. So, play around with the car customization, maybe try and improve the physics, and actually make it towards being a proper little first time attempt at making a game. Because you might enjoy it, you might learn some things, and you might actually develop a future for yourself as a games maker. But just flipping an asset does not make a developer. Asset flipping, developer does not make. But personally, seriously, why didn't you get some other assets, start messing around with some textures, messing around with the map and some weather, and just see what you could have done? Seriously. See what potential you have within you. Just simply flipping a product from a store is not art, it's not impressive, and it doesn't take any technical skill. We'll do one more map, because really, there isn't much to say on this video apart from this is what an asset flip looks like, so get ready, brace yourself. You're probably going to see a lot more of them in the future, not here though, unless I bump into them accidentally and don't realise. But thankfully in this situation, thanks to beautiful Steam reviews and Steam users, I was alerted to the fact that this is indeed a asset flip and given evidence showing so. Let's select a track. Now we'll go for this one. Ah, there we go. You can actually see the picture. I mean, when you dark this picture out, it's kind of a bit excessive, don't you think? I mean, literally you can barely see anything. And this little sunspot, sun glare, no, it's not sun glare, but this effect here in the centre of the screen, you'll see that a lot more on this level. It's quite a permanent feature, as you can see. It doesn't really move anywhere. But then again, that was probably surely something you were supposed to change yourself. Right, we'll give it a little flick in. Now, can I just say, something I'd like to say, as being a console user of many years and recently-ish moved over to being a PC user, when it comes to the Steam store, and as I pre-mentioned, as I said, thank you to the people who warned me about this being a flip, on console it has a very bad habit of fandom. When it comes to games that haven't even been released yet, but yet you go on, say for example the PlayStation store, see games that haven't even been released, but people have pre-ordered the deluxe, super amazing, oh look how big my penis is version on the store. I'm rated it 5 out of 5 stars, without, from what I can tell, playing it, because you know it's not out yet, and etc. And even then, you know, should you be 5-starring a pre-order thing? It's just getting ridiculous. On Steam, however, yes, you will have your fanboys and your fangirls and etc., but you have a good amount of critical, level-headed people who are objectively looking at games and just trying to be honest with people. And as much shit as I can give Steam, and people give Steam, and quite rightly so, reviews is one of the glorious part of it. The review system is something you can actually rely on most of the time. Where, being a console user on the other hand, I never relied on anything. The way I looked at PlayStation review scores were, for example, say if I saw a game that was rated 5 stars, I would assume that meant it was a 3-star game. It was slightly above average, maybe a 6 out of 10. Because really the bottom of the argument is 5 out of 10 is an average game that you wouldn't recommend getting, but you know, you wouldn't if you get it on sale maybe. A 1 out of 10 is a broken piece of buggy trash, that's, you know, maybe, I don't know. 10 out of 10 is the closest thing you can get to a perfect game. There is no such thing as a perfect game as far as I'm aware, but games that come bloody close. Don't get me started on the 3 stars out of 3 stars mobile psychology bloody trickery nonsense. Oh, it's disgusting. Anyway, hopefully there'll be some games that we'll see in the near future, because on PC, as I said, there is quite a lot of this trash, but the great thing is about all this trash, it's like life in a way. Life is 80 to 90% bollocks. It's all horrible, miserable, repetitive, tedious, frustrating, and illogical nonsense. But it's for that 10 to 20% bit of life, that bit where it's amazing, where it just hits that sweet spot and it's like, yes, this is what human beings can really do. And that's what we live for. That's the meaning in life, in my personal opinion. And that is what's hopefully going to happen with games like this on Steam. Well, saying not games like this, I should correct myself. But, you know, small indie games that are made by 1 or 2 people, or maybe just 1, or maybe a handful, where it's just a bunch of passionate people or a passionate person working tirelessly to make a nice game, to make something that they're passionate about, which is something that tends to work more than, you know, your generic stamp it out and repeat, you know, rinse and repeat formulas that, you know, big companies like to stick to. So hopefully, fingers crossed, at some point we'll come across a great indie game that's to do with drifting specifically, or maybe just any game in general. But hopefully we'll come across a drifting game that really does have a future, that has some sort of hope in it, and something that, you know, I can hopefully recommend to people wholeheartedly without any reservations. But so far, there's not been any sign of that. This is our first foot into the water, as it were. We've just dipped our toe into the water. This is an asset flip, and immediately we jump straight back out the water and we'll find a different pool. But yeah, this is an example of an asset flip, and I can see why Jim Sterling really doesn't like asset flips. It really is tasteless, talentless, laziness, and I hate having to pay money to show this to you, but hopefully that there's a silver lining to this horrible incident. I'll see you in the next week's video. For now, goodbye.